What's up everyone, I'm Luis. I'm back with another recipe. This time is for a mole sauce that's really good that I've perfected over the years. It's a little bit more difficult, but it's a hard flex. Like if you bring some rice and beans and crispy tacos to a potluck, they're gonna be like, cool, thanks. But if you bring some mole, you're the king of that potluck. So we're gonna get into this. Before we start, there's a few ingredients that you really need to have before we can get into this. A couple of dried peppers. We have 2 chipotle peppers, 1 guajillo pepper, and 2 ancho peppers. Now I really like these peppers because they're like a big raisin, and they smell really nice, and they're gonna give our mole a really good color and flavor. And another thing that you need to have before we can start is authentic Mexican chocolate. If you can find this brand, get this one. And the reason is it's a little bit less processed than your regular chocolate, and you can even see the sugar granules in there. It's got cinnamon and I think a little clove. Fun fact or helpful tip, pro tip, if you can find this in the coffee and tea aisle, because this is the one that you use for Mexican hot chocolate. And another thing that's good about this chocolate, if you flip it over, the ingredients are technically vegan or non-dairy. So we are gonna make this sauce with the help of some vegetable broth. The sauce itself is gonna be vegan. So you can, if you're having a dinner party or something and some of your guests are vegan, you can have the same sauce, but with some vegan options to add it onto. So try to get this one if you can. Before we get started, I wanna remind you guys to, if you like this video, if you use this recipe, if the mole that you make comes out delicious, if you use all these ingredients, it's going to. But consider donating to the Central Texas Food Bank to help those families that were deeply affected by the pandemic. And we're gonna get started. So we're gonna get started by chopping up our vegetables. We have 2 tomatoes, half an onion, 2 jalapenos, 1 tomatillo, and 2 cloves of garlic. And we don't even need to chop these up too much. We're gonna quarter them or 8 them. And the reason is because we're gonna fry these in oil for about 5 minutes just to activate their flavors a little bit, and then throw them in the blender. But don't skip ahead, let's just get these done real quick. We're gonna move on to the dried peppers. Okay, we're gonna take the stems off and the seeds out and try to cut them into smaller pieces so that we are gonna also fry these in a little bit of oil just to activate their flavors, and then throw these into the blender as well. And just do your best to get as many of the seeds out as you can. If some stay in there, that's okay. A little bit of spice never hurt anyone. And honestly, this ancho pepper is just a dried poblano pepper, so it's not even gonna be that spicy at all. We just want this flavor. And if you look in here, once you're cutting the seeds out, it's really sticky and gooey, almost like a raisin, like I said, or it's got a little bit of syrup, and this is the flavor that you want in your mole. But now let's move on to the stove, where we're gonna fry these up in a little bit of oil to activate their flavors before we throw them into the blender. We got a hot skillet right now. We're gonna add a little bit of olive oil, as well as a little bit of sesame oil. This stuff is really good, and it's gonna give our mole a lot of really good flavor. Okay, These have been cooking about 6 minutes on medium. So we're gonna take these out. They're ready to get out. All right, now we're gonna add to the same oil, we're gonna add the dried peppers onto there and fry them for a little bit. Half a cup of peanuts, an ounce of sesame seeds, and 2 cloves. And you'll be able to smell the peppers getting a little bit seared. Okay, this has been frying in a little bit of oil for about 4 or 5 minutes, and everything is getting dark, and you can see these peppers getting just a little bit seared right here. That's good. This is going to give us a good amount of flavor when we throw these into the blender. So let's throw everything into the blender. We're going to add these dried ingredients to the blender as well as our vegetables. In order to get it to blend well, we're going to add some vegetable broth. Now, if you don't care about it being vegan, boil some chicken pieces. Instead of vegetable broth, you're going to use the chicken broth straight from that pot. We're going to add the vegetables too. And let's get some vegetable broth and maybe about half a cup or so. All right, we're going to blend it up now. So we're going to add this back to the pan, and we're going to simmer it and add the chocolate. What we're looking for is the chocolate, the sugars in the chocolate to caramelize a little bit and give us a little bit of a darker color, because right now this is not mole color, but once we add the chocolate and let it simmer for about 30 or 45 minutes, it's going to get a deep dark brown. Okay, now we're going to add the sauce right back to the pan. Mix it around because we want to get all of this into the sauce. Now, that by itself looks like a really good base. So now we're going to chop up a little bit of chocolate and then add it to here and then let it simmer for about 30 minutes while we get our chicken ready. Now we're going to open our chocolate, and like I said, we're going to use about 1/3 of this, so maybe like 4 bars. We're going to cut it up into smaller pieces so that it melts easier. As much as you can, try to chop it into smaller pieces. Okay, we're gonna add the chocolate onto here. Add some more vegetable broth. And what's gonna happen is, since the chocolate is a little bit heavier, it's gonna go to the bottom, which is fine because it's gonna get a little bit of caramelized and make the whole sauce a little bit darker. And just look at that chocolate sort of integrating with the sauce. You can see those little rings, those little bits where it's getting into the sauce and making the whole thing a little bit darker. Look at that. On a separate skillet, we're gonna fry up some chicken, or like cook some chicken. I said earlier that this recipe was vegan. I'm not, so on a separate thing, a generous amount of oil, and why not get a little bit more sesame oil in there. Let's add some garlic. That doesn't need to cook for more than a few seconds before we throw some chicken on here. And don't even like touch it. Don't even mess with it for another like 3 or 4 minutes. If you need to do anything, just mix that around. We want a really dark sear on the underside of these. And then we're going to throw them in the oven at 350 degrees for the remainder of the time that the mole sauce is cooking. So maybe about another 15 to 20 minutes in the oven. And it's been about 5 minutes. So we're going to turn these over. And cook them for maybe about a minute or so. We're going to add the rest of the chicken. Okay, so we got the last of our chicken thighs on here. And we're going to put this in the oven at 350 degrees for maybe about 20 minutes to braise while we add our mole sauce back to the main burner. And as you can see, it's getting a little bit deeper and darker brown as we get our chicken braised. Braising the chicken. I don't even know what braising means. I have to braise you like I should. I'm an idiot, so I don't know. Okay, so our mole sauce was simmering for about an hour, and now is the time where you check it and just add a little bit more or less ingredients depending on, because you know the acidity for some of the tomatoes and the tomatillos is a little bit different depending on, you know, when you get it or so. So if the sauce that you taste is a little bit acidic, then you can always add a little bit of maybe like half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder, and maybe a little bit more sesame oil. If it's too spicy, you might be able to add some more chocolate and maybe like half a teaspoon of salt. So now it looks really good. It's a dark, deep brown color. Look at that. That's a really good, deep, dark mole sauce. And if you look on the bottom, you know, some of the chocolate is still on the bottom. Some of the sugars are still on the bottom. Take those off. Okay, so now our sauce is ready. Our chicken was baking after we cooked it for about 30 minutes. So we're gonna add one of these pieces with some good little garlic pieces on top. We're gonna get a little bit of mole sauce on top. We're gonna add some more sesame seeds on top. And just a tiny pinch of cinnamon. Ideally, when you take a bite of the mole sauce, you're gonna get three sort of things. Some of the spice, some of the sweetness, and some of the saltiness. All right, we're ready to dig into this. It looks really good, but real quick, I wanna remind you guys, if you like this recipe, if it comes out just as good as this one, which if you follow the recipe, It's going to be amazing. Consider donating to the Central Texas Food Bank to help those families deeply affected by the pandemic. And we're just gonna cut right into this. Let's go. I like this side right here. We're gonna try this real quick. That's really good. I'm gonna hit another side real quick. With this, get a little bit from there. Don't be afraid to like just smother the chicken in the sauce. There's plenty of sauce. And like I said, the mole sauce itself is vegan. So that just makes so much more things that you can do with just the sauce. You can roast some bell peppers with onions and then make some tacos with corn tortillas and then the sauce on top. I've been considering trying to make mole enchiladas. You can do mole tacos with the same chicken and slice it up in like sort of fajita style. Put it in a corn tortilla with mole sauce and a little bit of queso fresco. This is vegan, this is chicken. This together is amazing. So that's it. We have a vegan mole sauce with some chicken. Fun fact, I started creating this recipe after my grandma died and she never left her recipe for mole sauce. And so I decided to learn one myself. And then I found out that the whole time she just used the jar of mole sauce, which I don't blame her for. It's pretty good, but I think if you taste this one, if you make this one yourself, you're gonna be like, the jar, it's nothing compared to this one. Thank you guys. Come again. I've been Luis Flandes. Have a good night.